Well, hello again everybody. Well, as you can see, I've actually got on the bench today this box of valves and various detritus. And as you can see, these have been presented in what is, well, I was actually going to say a Quality Street box, because all the best valve collections are housed in an old Quality Street box. But yeah, this one just says Cadbury's on it, so that's a little bit disappointing to start with, isn't it? A few weeks ago, when everybody was packing up and leaving Goldborne, well, most people don't want to take half the things back which they brought with them. And one of the traders was no different, so he said I could have this box of various valves for £2. Got to be quite honest, didn't particularly want it, but I also didn't want to offend the guy, so I went ahead and I paid the guy my £2. And I'm just wondering what we've actually bought here. Will I actually make my £2 back in value? Have I actually just bought a load of valves with no numbers on that we don't know what they are? Or is it just a collection of valves that every one of them have got a burnt out filament? I've actually got no idea, so I thought what we could do for half an hour is we can just try to sort through these valves and see if there's any gems amongst them. I think possibly not. So I think for the first part of the sorting exercise, what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to have a look at all these valves, and if they haven't got a number on them or we can't read them, we're just going to discard them right away, because there's actually absolutely no point, is there, in having a valve with no number on it. Now, I know some of you out there, some of you greybeards, you can look at a valve and tell what type it is. I certainly can't do that, so let's discard the ones without any numbers. Actually, we seem to be doing quite well so far. Here's a valve shield. Bit rusty, it might come in for something. I can see we've got a red bulb here, so this isn't going to work particularly well as a valve, is it? Although it has got a heater in it. And I kind of think this is the sort of thing that reminds me, do you remember back in the day when they used to have those faux electric fires that were kind of living flame? I think they had a little red light bulb in them, didn't this? This could be one of those. Probably a collector's item by now. We'll have to try plugging that in later. Okay, we've got a Mullard EBC33. I think from memory that's something like a double diode. Is it a double diode triode? I'm not sure. I'm sure that you'll correct me in the show notes if I get it wrong. I did actually see a very random video on YouTube recently where some guy in India had collected a load of radio valves and he quite clearly painted them red. And then the caption was "Source of Red Mercury." Now, I don't know about you, but I'd certainly never heard about the myth of red mercury, or the possibility of this stuff being extracted from television and radio valves, which apparently is one of the sources. But if, like me, you do decide to go and scratch the underbelly of the web, there's actually quite a lot of information online about red mercury. For centuries, rumours have persisted about a powerful and a mysterious substance, and these days adverts and videos offering it for sale can be found online. Now, much like the mythical beast of the Hydra, red mercury seems to have many heads, and it's very difficult to find out where the source of this rumour started. Some people report that it's a magical healing elixir and it's found in the mouth of Egyptian mummies, whilst other people claim that it's a powerful nuclear material that might bring about the apocalypse. And if you do go onto YouTube, you'll quickly find that red mercury has vampire-like properties in which it can be attracted by gold, but apparently it is repelled by garlic. Whilst other people claim it can be found in vintage sewing machines or in the nest of bats. But there is just one small problem with these tall tales, in that the substance, red mercury, doesn't actually exist. It's actually a red herring. But despite this, you can still find it being hawked on social media and on numerous websites. Tiny amounts are sometimes priced at thousands of dollars, with many of these adverts featuring blurry photos of a globule of red mercury on a dinner plate. But the impression given is that it's a mysterious and illicit commodity offered for sale. Well, around 2009, a story spread in Saudi Arabia that mercury could be procured without breaking into ancient tombs or sifting through piles of batshit. Apparently, small amounts of this prized substance were rumoured to be found inside vintage Singer sewing machines. These very ordinary household objects started changing hands, in some cases for up to $50,000. In the 1980s, as the communist regime collapsed across Eastern Europe, there was much concern and uncertainty as what was to happen to their vast stockpile of nuclear materials. And at about the same time, rumours started emerging that a previously unknown nuclear material, apparently created in Soviet laboratories, was being offered for sale by shady individuals. And amazingly enough, it was called red mercury. And believe it or not, here in Britain back in 2004, 3 men were arrested and charged with terrorist offences, again after allegedly trying to procure red mercury. So to sum it up, I really have no idea why this strange myth of red mercury persists. Certainly there's no information to indicate that this material did ever exist, and if it did exist, it's not been tested in any laboratory. Now, as myths, scams and conspiracy stories go, I think this is a good one, but you're probably wondering how it touches us who like to play with vintage radios. Well, apparently another source of this red mercury is from old television and radio sets. And it's certainly alleged that the hunt for red mercury has led to the destruction of many thousands of these sets all across India and Pakistan. Well, if you're in the market to buy some red mercury, I'm sorry to say that I've searched through my collection of vintage radios and television valves and I can't find any. However, I do have some magic beans that you might be interested in. You can see we've got another red valve here, which is a ECH35, which I think is something like a triode hexode, so that's a frequency changer. It's actually a slightly more modern valve than the EBC33. I think the EBC33 was first came out about 1938, where the ECH35 was around 1940. Okay, we've got a 12, I think that's a 12K7 GT, that's an intermediate frequency amplifier. So our next valve is a Mazda Valve, which is I think that's a 6F10, not sure, don't know what that is, I'll have to look that up. A Mazda 6F10. Anybody know what that is? Okay, so I've come across my first valve that's got no number on it, and yeah, the numbering does seem to come off these quite easily. Now the base of this valve does seem also quite damaged. It looks as though somebody's had to maybe grab it with a pair of pliers or something to maybe pull it out of its sockets. It has another number stamped on the side of it, 10C1. Yeah, I don't know what that is. Could that be a civilian valve series? I don't know. I'll just Google that quickly, 10C1. Well, you live and learn something every day, don't you? So it appears that a 10C1 is a heptode mixer from around 1948. I don't know if this is worth keeping or not, because yeah, it looks as though it's been grabbed. The envelope could have been smashed. Maybe we'll give it a quick test. Okay, so I've got another valve here which I can't make out the lettering on. Now there's various techniques which you can use to try to reveal the lettering, none of which actually work. The most popular is to actually breathe on it, because they say if you breathe on it the condensation will actually reveal the lettering. Don't bother, it doesn't work. It looks as though it could be something like 6BD7A, I'm not sure. So apparently that's the equivalent to an EBC81, which is another diode, double diode valve, and I think maybe I can actually see the letters 81 still printed on it. So yeah, this is one that we're going to actually have to write some new letters on, so EBC81. So while we're at it, we might as well pull some of the other detritus out the way. So it looks like we've got a couple of dial lamps here and a valve base. Always handy to keep valve bases, isn't it? Although perhaps the reason it was removed is because it's no good. But we'll snip the wires off that, and yeah, the valve base may come in useful for something. And we've got some lamp holders. Again, don't know what radio these come out of, but again, could be useful for the future. One of the lamp holders has still got an Osram bulb in it. Okay, so it is an Osram 7V bulb, 0.3 of an amp. I wonder if the bulb's any good. I'm just intrigued to see if this bulb's good. Well, we've got a working 7V bulb. That was almost worth £2 on its own, wasn't it? So we'll keep that. And these dial lamp holders might come in useful for something in the future, won't they? So yeah, we will keep them. Also got another valve base which is riveted onto a piece of metal. Again, valve bases, they're handy to keep. We always need them, don't we? But we'll get rid of the crappy wire off it. So here we've got another EC81. Now this valve has got a manufacturer's name that I don't recognise. I think it says Solus, S-O-L-U-S, Solus, EC81. This is another frequency changer valve, isn't it, an EC81? I wonder if we can just look up this name Solus. Let's find out who they were. So I've just done a little bit of Googling online, and it says that Solos, they were a company that supplied a lot of valves into the radio and television trade, and it kind of implies that Solos valves were probably manufactured in UK, but they were maybe manufactured by the big manufacturers, but for some reason they didn't quite live up to the quality control. So they're not out and out failures, they're perhaps valves which just didn't pass you know, the entire of the specification. So yeah, they're kind of like seconds, if you like, working seconds. But that's something new. So there we go, a Solos valve, an ECH81. Here's an interesting looking valve. This must be relatively early, I think. I think that says it's a 2D4, and I think it's a Mullard valve. Let's see what a 2D4 is. Only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know, would that be a rectifier? I don't know, 2D4, I'm going to have to look that up. Well, of course, as you've come to expect from me, I'm totally wrong. It's actually it's a Mullard valve, a 2D4, and it's actually a double diode, and it actually describes it as having the 5-pin European pattern. Again, don't think I've seen a 5-pin European pattern before. Actually, we seem to be doing quite well so far. I've actually been able to read the markings on all these valves, which is, yeah, I thought we would have a lot of valves which were just undescribable. I'm not sure if any of them are any use. Okay, this has got a number on the top of it which I can read, which is I think that's a 7B7. Again, not one that I necessarily recognise. So taking a look online, it turns out that our 7B7, it's an American valve, and it says it's a variable mu, which means that it doesn't have kind of linear gain. It presents more gain to small signals than it does to large signals. That's what variable mu means. Often used for things like TRF sets. But the 7B7, yeah, an American valve. Also just noticed a little bit unusual in that it's got this pip on the bottom of it. So this is a loctal valve, not to be confused with an octal, because the loctal valve has the actual pip, because the holder for this valve has a little spring-loaded indent which grabs the valve. So these were often used in rough service equipment, so you might find them in valve radios in an aircraft or in an automobile or something like that, something where there's a lot of vibration and the valve could shake out, or maybe if they want to mount the valve upside down, this little tab here would stop the valve falling out of the holder. In fact, here's another valve that we looked at earlier. So this is just an octal valve, and the pins are a little bit bigger, and it's got a big plastic tab and an alignment tab, but this valve hasn't got any locking on it, but this loctal valve does have some locking on it. Okay, we've got another valve here which is a 10LD, and looking at these, I haven't actually seen many of these, and I'm not sure what base type that is. I think a few people have said that it's an early B8A base, this, but it has this pip on it, and yeah, I think it should fit. Will that fit that one? No, it won't fit that one, but it will fit that, I'm guessing. Yeah, unfortunately I think the pins are a bit mangled up on this one. They look as though they're slightly bent. Not exactly sure. Yeah, I've not seen a lot of these valves before with this pip on the end. Oh, I've just noticed it has got this pip on the side, which is the same as the more modern rim lock valves. But yeah, it's also got this little pointy out bit here. So is that still a B8A base? I'm not sure. Leave it in the comments. Got a terminal block. Maybe that'll come in for something. And we've got one of those little pens which has probably been stolen from either Argos or a Bucky's somewhere. Okay, we've got an unknown piece of metal. Can anybody identify that? I've got no idea. Unknown piece of metal, any ideas? I suspect it isn't valuable and it can go in the bin. Okay, we've got some capacitors. What brand are they? They're obviously so proud of the brand they haven't bothered to write the name on them. 33 microfarads, 450 volts. Well, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be my first choice of capacitor use, but you never know, I might have some crappy project in the future that I just need a capacitor for. Let's see what this says it is. Okay, this says it's 28 microfarad, so probably within tolerance, and it's got an ESR of 1.1. I don't know, but I suspect that's probably okay for a capacitor with a 450 volt working voltage. I'm going to say that's okay. Okay, we've got another capacitor here, which is 25 volts, 10 microfarads. I'm not even going to bother testing this because it's not got any value to it for me. Oh, and we've got a Mullard transistor. I know nothing about these vintage three-legged fuses. Now, I'm sure it's probably stuffed and that's why it's been taken out of its circuit, but we're intrigued just to find out what it is. Can I see a number on it? So looking at the number on the top of it, I can just about make it out. It is actually the illustrious AF117. So we all know what's wrong with this, don't we? It's, yeah. Yeah, we know what's wrong. Okay, it's coming up as an LED junction, so I'm guessing that that is bad. Could it be dirty leads? So that's actually showing 5.7 kilo ohms on my meter there. So that's indicating something not being quite right, because yeah, there shouldn't be any connection to the shield. Yeah, don't think so. Got to call that a day. Got to quit when you're ahead, haven't you? Maybe I was doing it wrong. Okay, I was going to say we've got a broken drill. I don't think it is a broken drill. We've got a stubby drill. Not very sharp. We've got another stubby drill. Actually, that one is sharp. So we'll throw one of there and keep one. Got a very manky wax capacitor complete with some straw on it, so I don't think we'll be keeping that. Got a crusty hacksaw blade, don't want that. Maybe a phono socket, no. Looks like a cap off a HT, off a distributor maybe. Maybe a small distributor, maybe that's off a bike or something. Again, don't want that. I've got a few grommets which still seem to have a little bit of flex in, we'll keep them, you never know. Well, that's probably enough valve excitement for now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep on sorting through these. I'm going to discard any that don't have a label on them. We'll throw them away. I'll put them on one side to see how many winners we've got. And then what we'll do is we'll probably just try testing a random sample of these, because I don't see the point in testing all of them. We'll see whether or not, you know, they're good or bad, because for all I know I've been sold a box of valves here. Every one of them could be defective, I've got no idea. So we'll do that. I'll bring you back when we want to test some valves. So I've just picked up a valve from the junk pile, and it's actually a Telefunken valve. I can make that out, but I can't actually make out the number on the valve, so I'm afraid this is going in the scrap bin. But I can actually see inside the valve, and I've never seen this, but can you see on the inside of the valve, written in pencil on one of these internal plates, it's got like a little set of initials. It looks as though it's well, it looks as though it's a U symbol or a mu symbol actually, isn't it? Maybe not a set of initials, but it's written on the inside of the valve in pencil. I've certainly never seen that in a valve before. How strange. Well, as you can mainly see, I have separated the wheat from the chaff, in that these valves over here, they've got no numbers on them, so I can't identify them, so I think they're going to have to go in the bin. Now, is there any possible use for a valve with no writing on it? There must have been some use for old valves back in the day. You know, most items had an alternative use. Anybody got ideas what we can do with valves which are no good, with no numbering on them? I've got no idea. But overall, we do seem to have quite a decent pile of what is hopefully good valves. Of course, they might all be duff valves, they might have open filaments, I've got no idea. Now, I'm not going to test every one of these valves because that would just take too long and be far too tedious. But what I think I will do is I'll test, maybe test 10% of them, and that might just give us an indication if we've got a fair batch of valves or if we've just got a load of junk. Well, as you can see, we've got on the bench the Mite tube tester. But of course other valve testers are available, but this is what we're going to use today. Now, the actual reason that I have actually chosen to use this Sencor instrument as above some of the other valve testers that I've got is simply that it was to hand, and because this is kind of a no-go test meter. It's not as advanced as something like the Avo CT160, which we also do have on hand, but it's just much quicker and it's simpler to use for a quick indication, which is all I'm actually looking for. So what we're going to do, we're actually going to play the very first game, I think, of Valve Russian Roulette. So what we're going to do is we're just going to choose 6 valves at random from the pile. We're going to put them in the tester and we're going to see if it tests. The only caveat to that is if we choose a valve that we haven't got the valve data on, we'll just skip on to the next valve. So I'm going to pick one at random, and I think maybe what takes my fancy is something like this EBC33, and I've already started to thumb through looking for the data on this. Now I've actually also never used my Senko valve tester with this little top cap, so that'll be another first for me. So let's load the first bullet. So of course we've got to get the setup data right, so EBC33. Okay, EBC33, helped I was looking at the right page. So it says we've got to set switch A to 6, so that's our filament, switch B to E, switch C to 6, which it is, switch D to G, got that, and we need to use socket 4. Oh, reading the wrong line, socket 1, silly me. Probably never been used, this valve tester, with one of these valves in. Well, we don't appear to have any shorts, so that's good. Let's try grid leak. That's still staying in the good. So finally, have we got any emission? Yeah, it appears to be in the good. And you can kind of do a live test by turning the filament voltage down a bit. So let's turn it down to 5 volts. Yeah, okay. To me that means that this valve could be a little bit weak. I mean, it is reading in the good at the moment, but yeah, it's had some action, I believe. Okay, but we are going to take that as a pass. So we've dodged our first bullet. It's nice to get one out of the way at least, isn't it? Let's grab another one. Okay, I think this next one is EL89. Okay, this valve tester doesn't come up with a number for EB89, so we're going to do what we said. We're going to put that to the back. Let's choose another one. Okay, so we've got an ECH81. So ECH81. So we need to be on 6, E, 6, and B. No top cap this time, so we can ignore that. So let's switch on. Okay, showing okay for shorts. Grid leak is showing good. And let's go for emission now. And emission is looking strong. So 2 out of 2. Okay, so we've got a 12K7 GT. So that's an American valve, isn't it? So I'm kind of hoping we're going to be able to find that. Okay, so here's our 12K7, so we need to go for obviously a higher heater voltage this time because it says it needs 12. So there isn't actually a 12, there's an 11 to 14, so we'll have to go for 11 for 14. And this is another top cap valve. So let's switch on. Okay, the light doesn't come on for short, so I guess that's okay. Grid leak looks okay. Just let the valve just come up to temperature. I can see it is doing because I can see it lighting up inside. And finally, let's check it for emission. And our valve's also testing good for emission. Okay, let's turn off. Let the valve cool down a moment. I would quite like to test this European pattern valve, this 2D4. Unfortunately, this valve tester doesn't have the valve data or a socket to fit that, so yeah, that one is denied, out of bounds. What's that one? UCH81. Okay, let's look for that. Okay, we have got a UCH81 19E6. Okay, looking good for shorts. Let's try grid leak. That looks okay, and I can see that the valve's warming up. I can see it's red at the very top. And finally, let's try our emissions test. Oh, and again, good emission, strong. Okay, we've got another ECH81. I can't remember, have we tested an ECH81 or not? I'm not sure. Load the gun. Oh, we've got some filament flash there. It lit up really brightly at the bottom. Okay, for grid leak, are we going to be okay for emission? Yeah. Getting quite exciting now. We're on for our last valve. So do I need to dig deep? We need to find something a bit different, don't we? Can I read the number on that? I think that says 6F10. Okay, does this book have a 6F10 in it? It does have a 6F10. And socket 1, which is that socket. Okay, well we're going to put that on. This one is also out of bounds because that definitely doesn't fit socket 1, so that must be something else. What about this little tiny valve? Now I've written on the side of this 6AK5. So do we have a 6AK5? Yep, we do have a 6AK5. And just before we go any further, does it fit socket 4? Okay, let's switch on for the last time and see if we've dodged that bullet. Okay, I can see the valves lit up and we've got no shorts. Let's try the grid leak. Looking good. And do we dare to press the emission button for the final and last time?
You've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
I'm going to press it. Good. Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
You don't care if it's wrong or if it's right.